I have very bad dry eyes, so if I appear to be sad and try kind of crying on the stage, you know it's because of that, because I'm actually really happy. It's a seasonal thing. Quite often, my employee will come into the office, see me staring at a computer screen, crying like really sadly, but it's actually just reading emails, basically. My name is Chen. I'm one of the co-founders of Possible. We're the first and largest crowdfunding platform in Australia. But I'm not here to talk to you about Possible today. I'm here to talk to you about my journey of giving every single blood of my creativity into this company for the past 6 years. What I've learned and what I've, find interesting things to do and not to do. And I hope this will make all your morning get up worthwhile. I'll jump a slide first. I think we're at a stage that we're over-glorifying the startup life at the moment. I've attended a lot of startup conference. I've heard a lot of startup founders talking. Seems everybody was really focusing on this amazing sort of results coming out of the success of the startups, but we don't actually hear much of the failures or the obstacles they were actually going through. And I think that got to stop to a certain extent, because it's not as honest to the people who's going into getting into something, and it's not a proper or positive sort of hand-holding experience for people, because they will get really hyped up going to something, and then later they find, oh, this wasn't never brought up in this way or that way. So I hope today my talk will be, I will be as honest as I can. So if do you have any questions for me, so please, anything you can ask anything here. So backwards. I started Possible when I just graduated from uni. Before Possible, I was doing a website with the same business partner that I was doing Possible. We created a very beautiful looking eBay kind of website for a visual artist to sell their artwork online. We spent a whole year on it, and I line up every pixels and design it very beautifully. My background is a designer. I had a digital media design degree from Sydney Uni. So I spent a year to make sure that website was looking really beautiful, very nice. But at the end of the day, we did not sell a single painting in a whole year. That is my first experience with startup. But it's from that we had the idea of Possible, and then that's when the whole thing coming about that why we wanted to do this. So up to now, Possible has raised around $45 million for mostly Australian projects, and we have hosted more than 11,000 projects on the site, and our pledge is coming from more than 100 different countries. I've mentioned this before. When I just started, I was fresh out of uni. I remember when I kind of get to Possible to a certain extent and then getting media attention, people quite often come and talk to me about, oh, it is amazing that how you just put everything, at risk to go into starting this company and make all these things happen. So I kind of I smiled. I mean, yeah, that's really the case. But deep inside me, I always questioned, did I actually really have much things to lose at that stage? Because I was freshly out of uni. I didn't have a job. I was always being freelancing at that time. And I got no money in my bank account at all. There's nothing got to lose. You can't really take anything away from me, So I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. But at the end of the day, I don't think that's true applied to me. So I think if you're fresh out of uni or you're very early, very young, you're actually in a better position because you don't actually have much things to lose. So you might as well give it a shot if that's where you're at with what you want to do. But later, at a later stage, when I sort of rethink about this topic, is that am I at risk now? You know, I've got possible, I've got certain things, and am I at risk to lose things if I wanted to get into other things like studying other business or that sort of stuff? Yeah, it definitely appears to me that it's the case, but I don't think that's the thing that's gonna make me kind of worry about what I'm going to lose. Risk and opportunity comes in a package, I think. And you can't be too greedy. You only want the opportunity, you don't want to take the risk. So you either take them or you don't. I think it's not much about if you wanted to do it or not, it's more about you needed to do it or not. Every time I have this feeling of I need to do something, then I kind of have this feeling in my chest that things need to happen. Even though I know, I probably don't have enough time to make it happen. This is probably not going towards the same plan as what the team currently wants. But I have that feeling it needs to happen, and then I will follow that feeling, that gut feeling to eventually make it happen. There was always a difficult process for me of going through that stage. I always struggle. Even if, I remember very clearly at an early stage, when I was at uni, I was working for a company in Sydney, back in Sydney. I really did not enjoy that work, but they just pay so well. And then, and you're a student, you're broke. So that money really, it's needed, it's very necessary for me. But I know it's not the right thing for me to do, and then I struggled so much. I probably spent about 6 months from the moment I know I have to leave the company until the moment that I actually make the decision of leaving the company. But after that, I look back, what a great waste of the 6 months of my life. Isn't it? Like, I quit that company, I went to start Possible. I was in a much better position in any ways, the things I wanted to do, achievement that I can achieve, and it's far beyond that small company could offer. And then I waste my life for that money, which is ridiculous. You look at your life, money isn't really the thing to be, stopping your life at. I could make more money selling marijuana, probably. Not probably, surely. Oh, I was talking to a friend, if marijuana is legalized, I'm the first one to start a cool startup that sell marijuana in Australia. If you have a lot under your belt, I think, and you decide to take the risk and opportunity package. If you can't minimize the risk, certain things is risky. Starting a business is extremely risky. What you can do is maximize the success chance of doing whatever you do. I think that actually helped a lot to, from another point of view, to de-risk whatever you do. Building a startup company, what I learned through all this year, if that's something that you're looking to do, I think it's a really good time to do that. We have so much resources, so much things going on to support startup companies. This startup company doesn't have to actually be, a tech company. I think design-oriented startups or small initiatives has a lot of potential to be very successful. When I talk startup, I always sort of bring up the concept of startup company again. So what is a startup company? How do you define a startup company? If, say Kingfolk Cafe downstairs, they just opened. It's a really cool space, and then, it's very young, vibe is really cool, good. Are they a startup company? It's not. But, you see investors from Silicon Valley throw heaps of money into startup companies, or what we define as startup companies, mostly internet-based. The reason for Kingfolk not a startup company is because the scalability is not there. I think that's what defines startup companies. A company has the potential to scale without needing too much of a resources put in. That is the potential of that startup company. For example, Possible could host 10 projects on our website. We could also host 1 million projects this morning on our website. We will need to put a few more resources in terms of developing and server resources to back it up, but we don't need that to grow in proportion to the project numbers. But if Kinfolk Cafe is going to sell 1 million coffee this morning, they can't do it. It's just not going to happen for them. So that is the scalability that is making startup companies so attractive to investors, because that potential of going viral effect. So if you're building your company, make sure that's, or whatever you do, an initiative, make sure there's a scalable fact inside whatever you do, not capping yourself with a limit. It's quite important, I think. It might sound a bit cliche, but I kind of laughed at this whole thing about talking about passion before I started Possible. I've heard a lot of talks about that, but being through these years, it's actually just coming back and bite on my ass so many times that I have to just turn around and have to say, yeah, I really agree with that. Do not do things to make money. That is not, you can't do that. It's not a problem, but follow your passion. Nothing wrong with money, I actually believe making revenue is a really important part of a company. It's not something that we should be ashamed of. No, not at all. It's not something we should be losing our soul to achieve. Definitely, that's what the passion's about. If a company is, chasing profit as number one reason without a purpose, that company loses its soul, and it's very easy to be overtaken by other startups, I believe. But have a revenue model. We all need to survive on money. It's very, very important. So back to the passion sort of thing. Do something that you really enjoy doing, because you're going to be doing that for all this time, all the years to come. That I did not know, when I start Possible, it's going to be a 6 year straight through. It's a very long process, and so you wanted to do something that you really enjoy, and then you can get up and feel happy in the morning to do it. It's so important, I think. Product. A lot of people get into the passion bit too much, ignored completely the product if it's needed by the public. This too has to play in a balance. You can't just say, oh, because I'm passionate about this particular thing, I'm just going to do it. Which, in fact, you can, but if you also want a success in your business or whatever you do, you also need to make sure the product you build, the general public want it. That's very, very important. I see this two balance ignored by a lot of the initiatives. Even projects aren't possible. Quite often you see them having this issue as well. They're either not getting this or they're getting too much of it. So they just do whatever that one thing they do. I think building a product general public wants is the foundation. And combine that with your passion, whatever you do, it's going to make a really good base. And being an expert at what you do. When we started Possible 6 years ago, the word startup or investment was rarely mentioned or heard in our lives. And there wasn't a lot of the, the whole incubator, accelerator, or events and, a startup conference to teach you how to do things. And we had no idea how to do certain things. And I look at it today, I kind of feel jealous with the entrepreneurs that start later than me to a certain extent, because they could just go and listen to all these sort of talks and immediately teach them all the things that I have to spend years to learn. Fantastic for them, So we should all take advantage of that. If you're going through this, there's already people doing it, so learn from them. It's all like things happen in a pattern. And you need to kind of, instead of you going through that yourself, someone has already done the work for you, so you can just to take it in. For example, this might sound really, really simple, but it takes me like years to figure out. Marketing budget, for example. I want Possible to have more projects. Then I have $500 marketing, for example, $500 marketing budget. What's the best way of spending this $500 that makes sense to bring in more projects? See, I have, I can bet it on Facebook advertising, Instagram. I could go and sponsor an event like CreativeMornings, or I could go and put advertising in the tram stop, which is a good way of doing it. And where should I put my money in it? This might sound such a simple question, but I just didn't get it right for a long time. The correct answer today for me is that finding all the channels that's needed in my actually bringing the outcome. Don't judge them yourself. Take a small portion of your budget out, for example, a tenth of the budget, and then equally spend them into all these channels and monitoring the return coming out of each individual one. And then when you have a result, pick the one that delivers the most return and pour all the money into that individual channel to maximize the return. It's such a simple thing, but I wasn't told that at all. I wish I was told that 3 years ago, and then that'll probably, save a lot of my life. Timing. It's very important. When we launched Possible, there was another competitor already announced they're going to do crowdfunding in Australia. We were the first one, and they were the second one. So none of us had a platform released at that time just yet. Just a landing page. So this is what we're doing, it's coming up, all that sort of thing. Me and my business partner worked our ass off, literally, to make sure we launched before them. I had a vague idea why it is important, but I did not understand the whole thing until we actually launched the platform. They didn't even manage to launch because we get so much attention when we launch the whole site. We get immediately partners, we get a lot of media coverage, and then they basically gave up. But in order to launch that, we worked till 4 o'clock in the morning, a lot of nights to make it happen. And my business partner at that time works for a corporate company. Then he has to come and join me from 5 o'clock when he finished work, and would work till 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm full-time on it. And then, because it doesn't make money, he shared half of his wage to give to me. That's how we managed to put this whole thing sort of off the ground. It wasn't an easy time, but it is definitely one of the times you look back, you think, I'm glad that happened, because if we just drag it along, that could be a competitive sort of story on the other side. So timing is very important. And this is a thing that, the startup in Silicon Valley always talks about. You need to release your product early. Whatever you do, you need to get it out early. If you're not embarrassed about your first release, I feel it's sick to talk about this so many times, you're too late. You need to be embarrassed by your first release, otherwise you're too late. We all get into the habit of a lot of us, try to perfect our product before we release into the world. But the fact is that if you get into the endless loop, it could take too long. You need to be very embarrassed about your first release and then go and fix. If you're not quite a web sort of technology guy, one myth that my friend always seems to have asked me is that if I do a company, like I have an idea, I want to build a website, I'm just going to hire a web designer or developer to build the site for like $50,000, and after they build it finished, they can just give it to me, then I can run the business. No, that does not happen, okay? There's no such time that product will be ready, a cut, for you to take away. IT web startup doesn't work in that way. It's an ongoing thing from the moment. Even if it's launched, you need that developing power always ongoing. So be careful when you're going to engage external developers. This is the thing that you need to consider. Don't think it'll be okay to a certain extent, and then you'll take them. They more like, as a developer, more like become part of your family. You have to build a relationship with them. You have to make sure they're always on call if anything goes wrong. And you need to stay prepared about what's coming up. Being in the crowdfunding industry, where one of the sort of buzzword of innovation gets mentioned everywhere, which is fantastic for Possible as a company. But what I quite often find is that a lot of people mention crowdfunding and sort of label themselves as expert, actually don't really know much about crowdfunding at all. There's a lot of crowdfunding advising sort of service out there, and if I dig a bit further into, and I don't think they're even qualified to give any advice on crowdfunding. So the fact is that you need to be keep up to date with the current technology. Especially in our industry, things change so fast. If you don't keep up to date, then it's very easy. You end up in a position that before you realize, you don't even know what's going on here. And prepare yourself for what's coming up. Building an initiative, starting a company, you get a lot of good side of things, but it's also very difficult. I tend to not talk too much about the good side of things because that's when you enjoy them. You want to have nobody have problem enjoying good things, but a lot of people have problem taking on the pressure bit of things. Especially if you have sort of like a team together, I think it's important at the beginning to write down your responsibility, map on a document. This is just a very simple practice, but it's later very helpful down the track because when you both, or like the team is under pressure, and then you'll behave very differently. And all of a sudden, it's not as easy the situation. You need all parts of the team to function at the best they can to solve that problem. So with the guideline is really helpful. This is all like what I learned. We didn't do that at a later stage, and then kind of needed that in place. And prepare yourself for what's coming up, even the success bit. Sometimes you get hit a lot by the success. For example, at one stage, I believe we had at early stage we had a campaign called the New Matilda relaunch in Sydney. They're independent news website, political news website. They brought a lot of traffic to Possible, and we basically can't handle that traffic, and then the website just melts straight away, and there's nothing we can do. Even nowadays, unless you spend a lot of money to build a website that's scalable with a hosting solution, which is quite complicated to some extent, it will cost a lot more than just building a generic website. Everybody will face the same issue. When you have a huge amount of traffic, your site just can't take it, and you will just melt straight away. So these are the things that you need to prepare, even if your project goes really well, and that you can have the growth pain sort of coming back and bite you. I actually come prepared, talk about risk, but I think it's part of my startup life that's sort of just already part of me. And so I guess I just sort of generally talk about everything. Before I hand out 2 questions, I wanted to talk about 2 things that we do at Possible that might be useful to whatever you do. First is what we call Possible Creative Resources. So here at Possible, we're designed to serve the creative community in Australia. But one of the ways that we give back is we open up the Possible's resource to allow creative people to use whatever that we have. That ranges from free co-working spaces to event spaces to rooftop spaces to equipment like camera, laptop, and computer, that sort of thing. But it's all free. But we have a condition that you're using them to work on a creative project. That's the only condition. So if this resource seems helpful to any of you here, so just Google it on the site. Just Google it, you'll find it, and then you can submit for application. We have limited availability. Our office is based in Collingwood, if you wonder, so it's not too far from the city. Another thing might be useful is Possible Open. That's one of the exciting functions that we're releasing fairly soon. And so Possible Open basically is a white-labeled Possible platform that it can be used on the likes of initiatives that if you do, and with a crowdfunding component. And then it's plugged in back into the Possible community. So you also get a lot of support from the general Possible community, but you keep your own branding, keep your own user base sort of engaged, if that makes sense. All right, so I guess I'll hand over to you questions.
Let's give a hand to Rick. Thanks very much.